The cliche is a quote from Brian Eno, which is that 30,000 people maybe bought the first Velvet Underground record in its first 5 years, but every one of those people started a band. I mean, it's hard to imagine punk rock, glam, art rock without Lou Reed. He's probably the most influential rocker who never really played stadiums on a regular basis or arenas on a regular basis. He made CBGBs possible. He kind of invented the idea of kind of like the Lower East Side rocker, the classic kind of like beatnik, art rocker, proto-punk, downtown New York rocker. The thing about the Velvet Underground, his first group, is that they were the anti-hippies, and they came out, in 1968, in the late 60s, at kind of the prime, of kind of the Haight-Ashbury scene and Paisleys and everything, and they were 180 degrees, opposite that. I mean, it's hard to remember how out of place they were. But as the decades have gone by, those records have become, just part of like kind of any kind of classic rock library. And one thing about those songs like Waiting for the Man and Rock and Roll and Sweet Jane, again, it's another case of where 40 years ago, 30 years ago, even 20 years ago, like in the 80s, those songs sounded so out of place. They kind of just sounded like he was just messing with the amps. And now it's like the world has really come around to him. You can hear them now, and they just sound like great songs, which is what they were, because he was both a great songwriter and a great lyricist. So many people. You go down a list, almost like everybody inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame after 1990 has been influenced by Lou Reed at some point. People like Bono from U2 talks about him all the time. Of course, David Bowie was both a huge influence on Lou Reed and was hugely influenced by Lou Reed. David Bowie kind of saw Lou Reed as somebody who was kind of doing something totally different, across the Atlantic Ocean, and he kind of just followed his lead, and they invented, glam rock. Basically every kind of college rock band, every indie rock band, every band, that didn't want to make prog rock or didn't want to kind of do something bigger and kind of classically influenced, owe something to Lou Reed. He was the kind of rock's great, primitivist. He made things simple again in rock and roll. One great quote that he had, which has been cited a lot lately, is that, one chord is fine, two chords is pushing it, three chords you're getting into jazz. And that was the antithesis for Lou Reed. He kind of brought back to this place of simplicity in the late 60s and early 70s. And then he just kept on going. Well, I mean, the thing about Lou Reed as a lyricist is that, he was both a street kid, he was both somebody who brought rock to a really simple place, but he was also someone who was hugely influenced by poets like Delmore Schwartz, who was his mentor. I mean, in a lot of ways, Lou Reed was kind of the son of Bob Dylan. He kind of took that, kind of early Bob Dylan style, this kind of attitudinal emphasis on lyrics, Bob Dylan circa 1965 with the sunglasses, and Lou Reed took that to its, furthest extreme. And he, created a whole new, he put the emphasis back on lyrics in rock and roll. He wrote some of rock's great all-time lyrics, but he made sure that they were rock and roll lyrics. They weren't, he wasn't trying to be Keats. He wasn't trying to be T.S. Eliot. He knew he was a rock and roll singer. He loved the form. And he wrote lyrics that reflected that were primal, that were simple, but were also beautiful. He never stopped exploring musically. He made an ambient record. He made a album devoted to Edgar Allan Poe. But at the same time, he always kind of stayed unshakably Lou Reed. He never lost the sunglasses. It's almost like he became part of New York City, which is like the city that defined him and which he helped define.